I don't think I'm in a position to give advices, but still, I'm going to give the situation with the public spaces in Armenia with a bit broader perspective, and then several case studies more shortly. So the public spaces, the urban public spaces that we have made in the city of Yerevan and also in other urban spaces, they were mainly all constructed during the Soviet Union area. And these are the parks, these are the public buildings, the large white pavements, different rest zones, etc., etc. Immediately after the independence, once the political system and the economic system changed, also the attitude toward the public spaces changed. So here you see pictures of cafes being constructed in the areas of parks, abandoned areas which used to be parks. So anything that did not have a financial value was not important any longer. It was considered to be as something useful because it couldn't bring any money. The state and local government and central government, they just abandoned the territory. So here you see places which used to be parks, nobody takes any responsibility for it. The citizenry was very weak, if to say any, so again, citizens were not using the public areas. Exception was probably the post-election, post-national election periods when the political parties were mobilizing large numbers of people to protest against election fraud. In the 2000s, this already became organized, so the local government and the government started to sell or lease the public spaces. Here there is, so we see the pavements taken over by little shops, the cafes being constructed all over the green parks and the green zones in Yerevan. I found a map of the green areas in Yerevan and the statistics of how they started to shrink. Transparency International has done the research. So in 1990, green zones composed 73% of the total area in Yerevan city. In 2003, this number already went down to 43%, and in 2007, 29%. I don't have the situation about 2012. I think it's definitely going down, unfortunately. The interest towards public spaces started to rise in the second half of the 2000s, when, and it was very strongly connected with rising civic activism. First, the beginning was, I think, in the 2006-2007, the situation was very much similar to what Zora, you were telling. There is a large area in the center of Yerevan between Opera and Republic Square with all the older part of the city, and the chief architect had this idea, which he normally has, a crazy idea of making a totally new district, Northern Avenue, and thousands of people, hundreds of families were evicted from their places. And of course, the protests were about the property rights of the people, about the huge injustices that were going on. But also it was at that time that young architects mainly, they got together and they started to put forward issues of how space should be used in the city, how the city should be constructed, etc. And after that, from 2007 and especially after 2008 until 2012, these the civic activism is continuously rising, I would say, and issues of public spaces, issues of environmental issues, space in general are one of the top issues. And they are going in 3 or 4 directions, I would say. One is about protection of architectural heritage and cultural heritage. Here we have a picture of Cinema Moscow open air hall, and in 2010 the government together with the church had this plan of destroying this area and rebuilding there a church which was there before the Soviet Union. And it was a very risky venture, I would say, because there is church and religion and because the Prime Minister was supporting it. But a group of architects plus young activists and even the Architectural Union together, they managed to start the movement civic initiative. A lot of public awareness raising, very large campaign signatures by the citizens. And they are saying like nobody believed that signatures of citizens could do something, but it turned out that 25,000 signatures for the protection of the space, they could make something. And this is just one of the examples. There are, since 2008 and until now, there are a large number of groups which are fighting for different cultural heritage areas. Recently, after Marstos Park, like last year, several of the initiatives joined together and they made a movement called Save Yerevan, and now they just joined their efforts in a coalition to protect public spaces. And this issue is really, in the normal population of Yerevan, this is very, how to say, people really take it personal, because those who live in the Soviet area, especially they have the memory of how the city looked like, how it was, how welcoming and open it was for people. There were a lot of spaces to walk, to enjoy, etc. So people really support this kind of spaces. And also I would like to mention that from 2008 on, this civil society activism, it changed a level and the quality. Before that, mainly NGOs were the main players in the field, and it was more like training, conferences, researches, this kind of activities going on. When we speak about street activism, then it is 2008, and it is connected with citizen groups, absolutely volunteer, coming together and starting issue-based movements. Now they are also collaborating with some NGOs, media, etc. Here is an example of another building in the center of Yerevan, another old building. In 2011, again, a group of citizens came to protect it. They were even chained themselves to the building for a night, and after that, the mayor decided that he's not going to touch it, so it is still there. The second tendency was for the protection of public areas in the courtyard. So Yerevan is constructed in a way that several buildings are in a circle, and there is a public area in the middle, usually green area, which is used for children's games, people having race, etc. So there have been, and the tendency is that the municipality is selling out these places for commercial uses, for building high buildings there, commercial zones, I don't know, different sort of things. And there have been already several successful and several unsuccessful cases when citizens get together and stop it. Firstly, of course, they try by letters, writing to here and there. Then finally, usually it goes to direct action, just standing in front of the tractors and not allowing the construction to go on. And then creating a status quo when negotiations can continue. Tamar mentioned about this city belongs to us. This slogan appeared in 2010, and it was connected. The second stage of activism for public spaces was when the environmental aspect came in, and it was in a way thanks to the anti-mining movement, which I don't know if we can call it a movement, but at least these anti-mining initiatives, which started in 2008 after a large forest area in the north of Armenia, was sold to a private company for copper mining there. So environmental awareness started to rise in the people. A lot of protests were going on in the city center, and some of the activists also got interested in the areas, in the green areas in Yerevan. So in 2010, when the municipality sold an area or leased an area for construction of a restaurant in a student district, student park, they created, 4 or 5 people created this initiative and called it "This City Belongs to Us." And the first action was for the protection of the student park. This one was unsuccessful. It was just the beginning. The activists were not ready for radical action, so it were just several peaceful demonstrations, a lot of letters going on. And it was interesting how...
Sorry for the interruption. Where was the police?
Oh, the police here, it was very peaceful. At this stage, it was very peaceful. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, but the mayor's reaction was very interesting. We had a criminal mayor called Blake Gagik, and he was saying after he heard the name of the group, he said, like, the city belongs, who are they? I'm going to find out which political force is standing behind these guys. What a question, the city belongs to us. The city already has an owner, and he was meaning himself, of course. So, but after the unsuccessful, well, the restaurant was still built there, so the movement was unsuccessful in the end. But a lot of young people started to get interested in activism in Yerevan. So in a couple of months, when there were already a lot of people from different parts of Yerevan had the phone numbers of the activists. They were calling and saying there is an area, green area being destroyed in our garden, etc., etc. And in the suburbs of Yerevan, after about 1 month of struggle, this activist group managed to protect a green park called Dragon Park, because there were old dragon monuments there. And up to this point, the activism used to be successful only in cases when the local community was standing for it, like in case of this Dragon Park, like in case of the courtyard areas. The next step was already in 2011 in Terchkan, which is not an urban area. It was a waterfall, which was in the list of protected monuments of nature. And here it was the first time when people stood up for a place they didn't live in. They maybe went once a year. Some of them hadn't seen it at all. But they saw the value of it, felt the responsibility as citizens and decided to protect it. It was also the first time when this large-scale direct action took place. Here, a group went to the construction sites. There was a hydroelectric station which was going to be built on the waterfall, and it would cut most of the water to the waterfall. So a group went. First, there were also awareness-raising activities, etc., etc., and then a group just went there and stopped the construction with their bodies, didn't allow the tractors to work, and made a camp there, even grabbed or occupied one of the vacants of the construction workers. And for 2 weeks there was this guard, like the camp there. On the other hand, in Yerevan, a group of lawyers was working, and also mobilizers to get pressure on the government. And in 2 weeks, it was the issue was solved. Everyone was surprised, and the activists were ready to spend the winter there. But somehow the government changed the decision, and the waterfall was protected. Then they made a task force, so no economic activity can happen in that area. And the importance of this particular case is also that for the first time activism went beyond Yerevan. So in this waterfall, activists from 3 larger cities were doing a lot of work, plus people from villages. And it was also the first case when during these 2 weeks there was some connection and trust built between the activists and the community. Finally, the last case was Yerevan's Marshall's Park, which is quite well known already now. It also started with a small group of people going for the protection of green areas, but during the 3 months of every day-to-day this occupation and struggle, it evolved from protection of green zones to protection of public areas to bringing in the constitutional values, etc. And really it was here in Marshall's Park that first the term of public spaces, public property versus private property, these things started to be discussed. The discourse was changing every week. The responsibility of decision makers about these issues was discussed, and there were really all sorts of different actions going on. You see in the beginning. Yeah, there were much more. Now here the police was quite violent, not as violent as in Turkey. I don't think we have had these cases after 2008 killings. So yeah, there were cultural. there was occupation, so day to day there were people who were every day in the park. We had the issue of raising awareness of the people and bringing in more people to the park. There was a large variety of groups present here, the LGBT community, artists, nationalist groups, human rights defenders, like all sort of people that you can imagine in and out of the civil society. And the goal somehow brought everyone together, and there was tolerance and some the atmosphere of creating something together. So there were really harsh times that were creating, this occupying the boutiques, not allowing the construction, some clashes with the police, or the police inappropriate reaction towards the activists. There were also nice evenings near the fire, concerts, free speech platform created where not only people from Armenia, but also we had guests from Occupy movements from different places. Somehow they were in Armenia and everyone was visiting the park. So it was really creating a public space there. Thank you, I'm finishing. And another point that here during this civic activism, the role of women is also changing. So we see women in the front line. On March 8th, it was all women decided to do occupation of a boutique and take away police hedges, and it was a very nice day. So finally it finished, we say that this movement was stopped in the middle. The president somehow, he appeared to, it was close to the parliamentary election, and the president decided to come to the park and say that it's not nice, and the construction was demolished. The park remained a park. Actually, it became, as it happens often in these cases, it became just a normal, some people also say elite park constructed by the municipality. Activists abandoned it right after the decision that it's going to remain a park. And it is very much criticized among the activist circles themselves. For the future, we also got to the limitations that activists didn't know what to do with it, or didn't want to do with it something any longer. And some of the future challenges are really designing public spaces in a participatory way. Activists, artists, researchers, I hope this can, and in a democratic way, in a participatory way. And also we see that public spaces, they are public as long as there are relations, people doing something there. So making not only physical areas, but activities to make the spaces like this.